In a random room, a boy wakes up to the alarm on his phone as he opens his eyes. He is startled. The entire room is painted with red scriptures. He wonders who could have written all that while he was asleep. However, strangely, the letters begin to disappear. He then thinks he must have been hallucinating because he just woke up. Weird how realistic it seemed. But then he looks to the side and notices the room he is in. Is not his room getting up? He wonders what kind of place this is. The instant noodles he ate and the 2 tissues he threw on the floor are no longer there. Obviously, he gets confused and starts to freak out. You seem to receive memories from another life of someone who is identical to him. Moreover, both are orphans, but they followed different paths. Our protagonist studied all his life and got into an amazing university, but the guy whose body he took over dropped out of school and had a horrible job looking at his trembling hand. He wonders if he is in some other world and what was the relation of those words. Written in blood on the ceiling in the memories of the original owner of this body, there's nothing about that. He stands there trying to understand the situation when someone calls an husband and says, "It's time for breakfast." When he turns around, he sees a woman with large curves looking at her thighs. He wonders what this husband thing is about in his parallel world. Did he get married so early? She sits on the bed and tells him to get up. It's getting late now. The rascal already thinks that the transmigration wasn't so bad. He swallows hard, thinking that if it weren't for this transmigration, he would never have such a beautiful and kind woman. She keeps calling him to have breakfast. He doesn't know whether to call her baby wife or darling. He then decides to delve into the memories to find her name, so it would be easier. He starts thinking and strangely finds nothing. His mind seems to split. No name, no experiences, no hobbies, no favorite position, nothing. There is absolutely nothing about her in his memory. He looks back, hesitantly realizing she is standing still, and he already knows this so-called wife is strange going to fly lands on her eye. Hesitant, he asks who she is. She stands still for a second. She then says that it seems he can see, already opening a monstrous mouth, sweet and cold. The protagonist says that he is just a little confused. He will think about it properly, but now she has already turned into a giant creature saying that he can see. He cries for a second, but in the next he is devoured. Suddenly, he wakes up in bed again, sweating cold and wondering what happened. He looks up, certain that everything was a dream, only to see the words in blood once again. There he can't read them. The things disappear and he thinks there might have been some kind of clue there staring at his own hand. He thinks he will have to pretend to be blind, but putting his hand on his head, he knows in the memories of the owner of this body, he wasn't blind. So it makes no sense. He's a guy who always lived alone and never saw or heard anything out of the ordinary. That means he can't let this woman know that he can see her for now. You will have to pretend she doesn't exist. A hand comes through the door and calls him, saying he just woke up and it's time for breakfast. Seductively she approaches while he thinks he will have to ignore and see how the former owner lived. She places the Dragon Balls in play and asks if he is awake, sweet and cold. He knows he can't move and can't see or else he will die. But suddenly she turns her neck and approaches him while he insists to himself that he can't show any reaction. But she keeps getting closer and suddenly her tongue comes out of her mouth as it touches his face. He shows a reaction and then she knows he can see his face begins to be consumed, tuned by a curse, and suddenly he explodes in the next second. He opens his eyes and gets up startled again, but now he's angry at that Dan woman. The poor guy wakes up sweating cold and tries to stop to reason and starts to wonder, is he being resurrected or is this a time loop? Apparently it's like when you save a point in a game. He grabs his phone knowing she wanted to force him to show a reaction. He puts on TikTok videos of dancing e-girls to pretend he's distracted when once again she appears behind him and says, "It's time for breakfast." She calls for her husband and asks why he is looking at other women like that. In front of her, he starts talking to himself, saying that he loves that girl from the live stream. Meanwhile, his wife asks if he doesn't like her anymore. She approaches and says she knows he doesn't have a vision problem. So why is the phone so close? Is he seeing her by any chance? He goes back to fiddling with his phone, wondering if he can't even seem strange. However, he calms down a bit since she didn't show a reaction. He then goes back to looking for other live streams, but then he gets a scare. She appears live streaming on his phone. He stands up and throws the phone on the bed, scared as he trembles a bit. She behind him, as he can see, she opens her monstrous mouth to eat him, but now he comes to throw a punch, but she dodges, and then there's nothing he can do. A bite to the arm. He agonizes and dies once again while she feeds on the pieces. He wonders if that is really his remains, and with that, he starts losing consciousness again once more. She says it's time for breakfast, and she approaches, startling him up to the 6th time. He resurrected. He still got scared just by her getting close to his face, and he died multiple times because he couldn't act very well. On the 8th time, he tried to escape from that room, but there was no way, and she realized that she could be seen, so he concluded that he should pretend to like her since there was no escape. As soon as she came to give breakfast, he said she was amazing. His plan was to take advantage of that as much as possible, but in the end, he went hungry and she ate everything, and so he died 13 times in a row while trying to find some way to calm down. Some people who go insane become very sane, but for him, death kept coming. It reached 14, 15, 16, and with each death he received new memories of the owner of that body. He started to understand a bit about that world and how different it was from his world. This is a place full of bizarre tales. On the 18th death, he wondered why he was reliving, who wrote those words in blood, and why do they disappear as soon as he looked at them once again. He opens his eyes, wondering who is responsible for all this. He doesn't know who it is, but he knows his wife is one of them. She is a monster, and he began to repeat to himself that she should die because he deserved to live once again. She came through the door, calling in husband and saying it was time for breakfast. He got up, milling that every time she comes to do this, but never forces physical contact. Standing in the door, she asked if he wanted to start the day by eating some hot, moist meat. He got extremely close, but he walked right through as expected. She could only do something where she is sure he can see. He wanted to prepare some food, while she desperate at his side that she already made breakfast and was ready for him. The poor guy sighed, thinking that the more beautiful, the better. The lie, she's saying it's ready, but clearly there's nothing prepared. He made a snack, knowing that only by leaving that room would he find something about his wife. When he went to bite the snack, she had transformed into the floor, asking if he was seeing anything. He went to the door to open it, knowing he needed to get out of there, and she was visible on the doorknob, asking where he was going and why he wouldn't stay home with her. But he just opened the door and left the room, saying to himself that no one kills him 18 times and gets away with it. Now he wants revenge. As soon as he finds a way to eliminate her, he will come back here. But as soon as he opens the apartment door, he gets a scare looking at the sky. The world is red and filled with deformed creatures in front of him, only the silhouettes of people. He gets scared by that and starts laughing like a psychopath, saying that this world is really interesting, but he feels something strange and vomits on the sidewalk. Suddenly someone appears, asking if the uncle's okay. He looks startled, and it's just a little girl wanting to know if he's sick. He tells her he's fine and she can call him Big Brother, patting her head. He thinks she's so cute that he would love to have a daughter, but she becomes informed instantly, saying he can see his heart stops, and he looks up. The girl turned into a giant demon with a blade. Our protagonist is at a loss for words, and then starts laughing loudly, saying that this world is very, very interesting. He likes it and tells her that he really likes this appearance, because that way when he kills her, he won't feel any guilt. He will end all the weirdos in this place without any remorse. But this time he was torn to pieces. Once again, he wakes up in bed with the balloon wife, asking if her husband is okay. The sun is all ready rising. The poor guy thinks that having breakfast 20 times in one day is really tiring. Sometime later, he is sitting on a park bench once again. The little girl comes and asks where her mother is. Can he take her home while he's thinking about the madness and all the kinds of strangeness in this place? One type is the completely strange and irrational ones. They are aggressive, but can't affect anything like air. The other type is the creatures that are identical to humans. They do nothing but try to get close to you. But as soon as they get a reaction, they make their move exactly like that wife. He knows that no normal person in that world can perceive their existence, but even so, they cling to them. Why do they want that? He thinks that maybe these creatures want to integrate into human life sometime later. He is holding his phone and received a payment of 3 cents to survive in this world. At least he will need a bit of money to discover the things he needs in the work group. A guy named Wudai is calling for him. The name of our protagonist is Yizu Fangu. He works selling apartments for a company and knows he hasn't received the commission for one he sold recently. So he sends a message saying he's going to settle that, and he speeds up on his bike. When he gets there, strangely, is a hospital instead of the company's building. The place looks more like an abandoned building. He stands sweating cold at the door, wondering if this is the sales place. He reaches the door and his phone rings. He says he is coming up and asks if everyone is in the office. The people say yes, that the owner's son tried calling him several times, but he didn't answer. The protagonist says, "That's fine. Then he will come up." Our boy realizes that this place is definitely affected by reality, but the people on the call didn't seem to be doing badly. He finds it strange but also interesting. Walking down the corridor, he suddenly bumps into something. He feels he touched something soft and wonders what it was. He calmly reaches with his hand, wanting to know if that is the limit he can go, but when he touches are 2 magical spheres of clairvoyance that predict a pleasant future. The rascal blushes, and suddenly he feels something a slap lands. On his face, the girl appears screaming that she will complain about him, and she runs toward the guard while he doesn't understand what is happening. When he looks up, it says, "B Academy." But as soon as he blinks, the place turns back into the abandoned hospital. He reaches toward a hospital wall, but strangely, his hand goes through. He realizes he can't interact with the physical form of it and thinks that maybe it's like the creatures that need certain conditions. Once again, he passes his hand through the wall. And with that, he goes through it. He feels a bit dizzy and sees an abandoned corridor. Sometime later, he has already looked in several rooms, but they are all empty. But in one of the doors, there is a strong smell of blood. Hesitant, he once again goes to pass through it. He ends up in a room where there seems to be a girl on the floor crying. He keeps looking and she starts to get up, and she looks at him, calling him big brother. But now he is resilient and ignores her passing through the wall. As soon as he comes out on the other side, he faces another creature, but he keeps walking. Even the monster looks confused, and he realizes that there are dozens of strange things there. Every place he enters has a bunch of weird stuff, and the bizarre thing is that some rooms are open in a way that they could escape. Now he's getting good and doesn't show any reaction, all thanks to the dear wife who killed him 18 times. Suddenly he sees some papers on the floor that talk about experiment number 128, that underwent a transformation. He crouches to pick them up, wondering if all the transformed are really human, but unfortunately, he can't even turn the page to know what's written, since he doesn't belong to that world. Suddenly something passes through him. He stands up, and it was the hair of a monster on the ceiling. She descends beside his face and asks why he is there by any chance. Is he looking to explore the mysteries of life with her? He ignores her while thinking that maybe the best place to go is the director's office. The mental hospital building is the same one from the memory of the body's owner, which should have been a sales company, and the director's office is where the old staff room used to be. He decides to go upstairs to see if there's anything there. As he walks down the corridor, someone calls for Brother Sue and asks what he's doing there. Suddenly a chubby guy appears yelling at him, asking how he dares to come to work if he's all ready. been fired, but Fangu walks down the corridor and pushes the two aside, thinking there's nothing on this floor. The guy with glasses looks confused, and the boss is cursing at him, asking why he's going to the second floor and telling the guy with glasses to stop him. But our protagonist is already walking over there and finally finds the director's office. Someone yells for him to stop, but he's already got his hand on the doorknob. The friends behind him are freaking out, saying it's all over, but just by seeing the leg you already know what's coming. Look at the waistline, look at the little mouth. In fact, the colleague was already being squashed. The people ask who the protagonist is and what he's doing there, and he suddenly grabs her arm. She tells him to let go and asks what he's doing, but he just throws her aside, saying she's too noisy. She falls and the guy goes to help her without doing anything while he finds a paper on the desk. And as he expected, there's some kind of big secret in this mental hospital. The message says that if he wants to receive the gift of fate and uncover the secrets of this world, he has to go to Run 520. He wonders if this letter was for him and leaves wanting to know how they knew he was coming. It's in building C room 520. Suddenly the lamp bursts. The friend with glasses is still following him, while the other three who stay behind are saying they are scared. He turns on his phone, saying something is not right. The friend beside him says he's acting strange today. Why isn't he talking to anyone? He uses the phone to light up the second floor and realizes he's no longer in the mental hospital but in the old company. The guy having fun asks the chubby one for his phone, who says it also has no signal. He tells him not to worry, because with his status he can access more than he imagines. But if he's not wrong, all these things point to them having entered a strange world. An entire place that was once a normal reality now seems to be suffering anomalies. The people who were working are still worried about not delivering the service. One of the building's guards asks if everything is okay and says he will take a look to see what happened. One of the girls crouches to pick up her phone and turns on the flashlight, but says it's too weak. The protagonist is there too. He turns on his and asks the guy with glasses why his light is also so low. People are questioning the blonde guy about what he said about them entering a strange world, when suddenly he loses his temper and tells everyone to shut up, saying they need to stay calm because that's the only way they'll survive. People fall silent, seeing that he got stressed out of nowhere, and the guy explains that in simple terms, they have entered a world full of coasts. Basically, it's an alternate dimension where they live. People are silent for a second and ask about the guard who went to check the light. It's been 3 minutes, and he hasn't returned. Tang once again warns that in this world, you can't violate any ghost rules or you'll die. The chubby guy trembling asks what they're going to do now. Then he replies that they urgently need to find a way to escape from there, or everyone in that place will die. The protagonist is sweating cold and hears a sound behind him from the familiar sensation. He knows it's a ghost approaching. He warns everyone that one is about to arrive. People tell him to stop joking, because there's no ghost there. But one of the girls gets grabbed by the hair, while Frangu watches the people scream until he says that Sholi is already gone. The girl, the glasses, is scared, saying she must have walked away. She was right next to her and starts calling from her friend, telling her to say something. No one there can see anything properly due to the darkness. Uang asks the protagonist if he saw the ghost's appearance. He replies that unfortunately he couldn't see it since the girl disappeared. Suddenly at this moment everyone starts doubting Fangu, saying that he's acting strange. You says that? He doesn't seem afraid at all. Could he be a spiritual master? Confused, he asks what that is. The guy finds it strange that Fangzuku doesn't know what a spiritual master is, but is too calm. His identity is in question. The guy explains that a spiritual master is someone who can control their spiritual energy, and in moments like these, they are the necessary people. Fangu asks if the spiritual master thing is someone who learned it in the realm of the strange. If that's the case, he wants to know how to do it. Once again, Tang notices he's very calm and confident, so maybe he's the key to getting out of there. And then he explains that, to get out of that world, you need to gather the power of the ghosts. You need to meet two conditions simultaneously. The first is to go through the fear between life and death, simulating an emotional trauma, and the second is to come into contact with the ghost, to lose power, invade your soul. But you must be cautious, since ghostly power is like a bloody garment. Even though it covers your body, it also stains your soul. Hearing these words makes Fang Yusuo thoughtful, especially because he knows that after multiple deaths, he avoids contact with the ghosts. To not die from the wife to all the street creatures, they are mere illusions, as long as he doesn't interact with them. However, when it crosses into reality, it can kill without the need to be seen. So maybe if he can contact them, he will be able to eliminate them. Fangu wonders if this is a good thing. Remembering his wife, he says he's crazy to become a spiritual master and end her when suddenly another person from that place disappears. Tang starts to go crazy, telling everyone to shut up or they'll attract more ghosts. Fifi approaches and asks what they are going to do. She's afraid of disappearing. Fangu says it's 2 and 3 minutes precisely for men. It's a 3-minute interval, and for women it's 2. The guard disappeared. 3 minutes later, the girl disappeared, and 2 minutes later, the other guy disappeared. Following this logic, there are 3 minutes left for another one of them to vanish. He starts to leave, and the guys ask where he's going, if he's trying to get himself killed. Fangu says they better start looking for a solution too, or everyone will die in that room. Suddenly Tang points at him and tells him to stay still, because no one is leaving that room. But the protagonist ignores him and says that considering there are 8 of them in 20 minutes, there will be no one left. Fang Yuku looks back and warns that anyone who tries to stop him will die before the ghosts walking down the corridors. The friend with glasses asks why they never find the stairs, while Fangu recognizes the lights as the same ones that were in the hospital. Suddenly, he realizes they are now back in the hospital. A friend asks if they are hallucinating because, as far as they remember, they were in the company. Why are they in the horror hospital now? Fangu Shu is now sure of the company, and the hospital are overlapping in this reality. The hospital swallowed the company. At this moment they see a red pool. The entire corridor is dirty, and they recognize the uniforms there as being from the company. Fangu concludes that the ghosts take 2 minutes with women and 3 with men, because that's the time it takes to eat each type of person. He says they still have some time, and the guy with glasses says that it seems they are still eating Geiling. The protagonist finds it strange because in the hospital everyone was trapped, and the first time you passed through here there wasn't all this blood in the corridors. The cuts on the clothes prove they are using some sharp blade, and he found only one like that. Something is coming out of the ceiling, and he remembers that the only one moving freely is the ghost doctor he saw right above him. That time, they hear some sounds coming from that direction, and when they look, it's the group that was in the room coming to ask what they will do. They feel a bit awkward, and the chubby guy asks if they found anything by coming down there first. Suddenly they scream, and the girl says there's a lot of blood there. Everyone recognizes it as being from their allies' clothes. And Tang asks if everyone was eaten fearful. Faye begs to leave, and Tang says they really need to flee as quickly as possible. They asked Frankie to lead the way, but he says nothing. After a moment of silence, he announces that the time has come. Fafi asks what kind of time he's talking about, and behind them, Har is descending. Hearing the sounds, a slowly turn around, and from the ceiling, the ghost doctor is approaching. The second Fifi gets scared, the creature gets close to the two of them. Everyone tries to run, desperately telling the monster to get away. But something stops Tang. It's Fai with Fallen and is begging to be saved, but seeing the monster approaching, he slaps the girl, telling her to let go of him, seeing everyone flee. Fangu remembers the moment he saw the doctor, and on the ground, Fiy is begging not to be. abandoned, but the creature is already holding her by the hair with tears in her eyes. Faye begged, but the lights went out, and it rained blood in that place. The friend with glasses was shocked to see that Fee was dead, and the monster didn't stop and continued to strike her multiple times. Fangu noticed that her scalpel techniques were extremely advanced, so she probably practiced a lot. He and his friend were standing there, but the creature didn't seem to be paying attention during 2 surgeries at the same time would be almost impossible. The monster puts away the scalpel and opens her mouth to eat Fee fangs. You understand that the instinct to eat humans is just because she turned into a ghost. He starts to approach, and his friend asks what he's doing next to the monster. Fearlessly, Fangu punches her in the face, but he is startled. Her skin feels hard as steel. He remembers that all the creatures he encountered are extremely powerful compared to humans. The only way is to become a spiritual master to change this situation. The friend calls for him, saying they need to run away. But Fu says it's okay because that creature only kills one person at a time. That means when she's eating is the safest moment of all. The friend says that soon the monster will finish, but the protagonist says that FYI had an extra round piece of flesh there that will make it take a little longer. The friend, upon hearing that, vomits, while Fangu remembers that he needs to absorb cursed energy from the creatures. And in a dimension like this, near the ghosts is where the most concentrated power is. The physical touch would be the best way, seeing the ghost's thighs. He pats them to see if he gets infected. The monster's legs are inverted, and Frang is patting them. The friend tells him to wake up, that it's not the time for this kind of thing, but Frangu just says that if he's scared he can run away. The guy says okay, and if so they should go all out. He gets closer to the protagonist to touch the ghost's legs, but soon realizes they are very cold while patting. The friend says nothing has changed, and Franku says they will continue. The friend says he never thought the first contact would be with a ghost, but these legs are really too long. The protagonist begins to think that this guy has some hidden potential since before he was dying of fear. But now he's ruling. He announces that a minute has passed. They will bother her for another 30 seconds and then run immediately. As soon as the clock hits 1:30 on the phone, he stands up saying it's time to flee. The friend asks if they can really escape and where he's going. Thanu is sure where he's going, as he observed the hospital very well when he walked around, and they will use the terrain advantage to create a distance from the doctor. But Hai appears in front of him. He wonders if he miscalculated and how she finished eating so quickly. The amount of flesh Fifi had was enough. Then he notices 2 silicone implants on the floor. Everything was fake, and now the ghost is behind him. She makes it cut right on his neck with that. The boy's screen goes dark after his head rolls through the air. He opens his eyes again, but now he's back the moment with that monster. Right when the friend said it was very cold, Fire concludes that the time loops are defined by events. Or maybe it's like a game where you have to pass a level and part of it gets saved. The friend is having fun, but he knows that last time he died because of the silicone. So this time he can't make the same mistake. He quickly grabs the boy and tells him to get out. But drooling the rascal says it's the first time they can stay a bit longer. Fangu warns that everything there is silicone, so if they don't run now they'll both die. The friend is shocked. Now understanding why it was so big, with that the 2 were already fleeing down the stairs, and counter the people who were also coming down. The desperate crowd starts running faster than them, but Fangu grabs the handrail and throws himself in front of everyone. The chubby guy says he thought it was the ghost, and tells him not to SK him. Like that, the guy. The glasses wanted to know why everyone was fleeing so slowly. The guy said they weren't slow since they had already descended 20 floors. But Zia Hao said that's impossible since he and Fangu only descended 3 to catch up with them. The people tell him to shut up and stop lying, but Tang understands that the ghost is creating false paths. He mourns that monsters like this can create illusions in which you get trapped. Fangu becomes thoughtful and observes the discussion. Then he approaches and tells everyone to throw any spare items on the floor to mark the way. With that they scream and start dropping everything they have in their bags and pockets. Then he tells everyone to go down the stairs quickly. They start running, and after a while they find everything. Again, the guys recognize the money and bottles they have thrown, but Fangu was interested in the small shirt. Suddenly Tang shouts and says that only a spiritualist can see the exit. He tells everyone to activate their power and try to see something. He clasps his hands, saying he doesn't know if that previous experience was enough to unleash her powers, but he hopes it is to escape from there. The people are confused, not knowing how they're going to do that. They start trying like the guy did. While Fangu observes the stairs, he remembers that the exits from these corridors were on the right side, so it must be something similar. Seeing this, Tang asks what he's going to do. Again, he says he doesn't care about praying and is more interested in finding clues to escape from there. Hao was impressed that Fangu was still very calm while Hang thought. He didn't hesitate even for a second when the monster appeared. The strange thing is that now they fled down the stairs and found the two, again not to mention that both spent at least a minute with a monster in the corridor. So what happened? For some reason the psycho concludes that they should be taking advantage of the ghost. It makes a lot of sense, but obviously he thinks that's not possible. Thank God Fangi was touching a wall and Hao asked what he was doing. He was counting between 10, 12, 15 and send to stop. He said he found it. The friend was impressed that there was actually a door, and Tang appeared asking if they really found it and came running. The problem was how to open it. He imagined where the lock should be and moved his hand in the void that opened the door from which an energy came out. Fangu was about to be the first to enter, but T bumped into him and ran out, saying they were finally saved. Everyone passed by him, desperately trying to escape. Hao asked why he was letting everyone go ahead and how he was so calm. Fangu knew very well that facing that creature there was no reason to try to be fast when a chubby big noosed guy appeared, telling the two to run or they'd be used as shields to die. Fang Shu's plan was obvious, usually to see who get caught that way. The ghost would stop and he could increase his spiritual power. The people continued in front, fleeing desperately until suddenly they had to choose between two directions. This created a divergence in the team, since everyone wanted other people to go ahead to test the paths, and Tang once again asked Fangu what they should do if he found an iron door. He must know the way out of there. Fangu wasn't very keen on helping since everyone kept pushing and expecting him to die. The group kept shouting, telling him to speak up quickly because the coast was approaching. Fangu just said he didn't care about that, thinking that for him, everyone there was just a tool at that moment. The ghost doctor was invincible, and what he had to do was buy time. As he goes down the right path, he thinks that to get out of there he will have to sacrifice lives as soon as the group sees him take that path. They start running, and a hand can be heard coming from behind. The chubby guy is the last one, and Franku knows very well that she has arrived soon on the ceiling. She is preparing to attack him as she sees everyone fleeing. She approaches the last one as the hair draws closer. The chubby guy panics, saying he can't die. Seeing a guy in front, thinks he didn't give permission for him to run faster, so he grabs him by the collar and throws him back. The blonde falls to the ground, calling out to the chubby guy, but something has already slashed his neck and the walls are painted with blood. Seeing how the guy did that, Fangu thinks he is no different from a ghost who lost his sanity, but now he needs to increase his spirituality. The group asks what he's going to do, and there he is once again facing the ghost. The sick friend approaches, saying he can't have all the fun without inviting him, staying that smooth cold skin. Like that is like ice. Jade Fangu thinks the guy suddenly turned into a poet, seeing how crazy he is. Maybe he will also awaken spiritual power, and together they can escape sometime later. They are fleeing again, and Frank's you.